Hey everybody, Dean Kuluvira, IT recruiter at SRA Staffing. Just doing my midweek job search tip video. Thanks so much for joining in and watching. So today I just wanted to do a quick video on and kind of expand a little bit on the article that I put out on. It was either Sunday night or Monday night. I can't remember when exactly I released it. June 10th. What is that? June 10th was I think Sunday night. My calendar's frozen. I can't even open up my calendar. Yeah, it was Sunday night. Okay. So basically, the article I wrote was it's called "How to Set the Stage for Getting the Job at the Interview." Now, what I discussed in this article is the questions you need to be asking to kind of set the stage and lay the groundwork for getting to a point where you can close the interviewer, the hiring panel, the hiring manager, whoever you're meeting with at the interview, to either A, or one, move you to the next step in the process, or two, get to a stage where you can actually ask them for the job and ask them to make a decision and make that decision, right? So some of the questions that I suggest asking, I'm going to read them to you, and these are not in any particular order you should be asking. These are just suggested questions. So these are some of the questions. So this sounds like a great opportunity. Aside from yourself, who else would you need involved in making a decision on moving forward in the process or deciding to hire me? Other question, thank you for your time and meeting with me today. What other information do you need from my end that will help you decide on moving things forward or to the next step with me? Next question, appreciate you taking the time to explain what this opportunity entails. Knowing what you know about my background and the experience I bring to the table, is there any reason why you feel I would not be the ideal fit for this position? And finally, I've really enjoyed our discussion and learning about the role and your company. Knowing what you know about my background based on our conversation, how well do you think I fit into what you're looking for in a candidate for this particular position? So these are some suggested questions that I wrote down in the article. And what I wanted to emphasize, which I did emphasize in the article, but I just want to make sure all of you understand the importance of it. You have to ask these questions with a great attitude, a positive attitude. You have to be interested, enthusiastic, and have a nice big smile on your face when you're asking these questions. Because if you do it with a straight face, if you do it with just only a commanding tone, you're going to come across as arrogant, maybe even rude or condescending. So the way you ask it is just as important as what you ask, right? So I'm going to say that again. The way you ask is just as important as what you ask. So make sure you keep that in mind when you're asking these questions. Now, secondly, a common question or a common, I guess, thought some of you might get is, look, what's the point of asking these questions? Let me just go to the interview, Dean. I have enough going on in my life. I don't have the time to ask these questions. Like, it just seems too aggressive. And why not just go through the interview? I'll do my best. I'll give you my best shot. I promise you, Dean, I'm going to do my best. And I'll just go home and I'll just wait for what they say. Like, let's just see what they say. Dean, why are you making me ask these funny questions? So this is a common, thought process or inquiry I get from some candidates. Like, Dean, what's the point of asking? Like, what is this closing stuff? Like, what is all this closing business you're talking about? This isn't a door. This is an interview. Like, what are you closing? What are you closing? Right? But so what I mean by closing, and I discussed the definition that I'm referring to about closing in the article. So if you haven't read the article, and I should have said this before, I'm posting the link in the comments. Make sure you read the article first, and I discuss my definition of what I mean by closing in the article. But for those of you who didn't read the article, I'll just read to you what I wrote right now. Is so my definition of closing is. I'm referring to the definition as applied to in a sales process. So the completion of a transaction when the salesperson asks for the customer's business and the customer agrees to part with their money in exchange for the product or service they've been considering with the salesperson. So at the job interview, closing refers to asking the employer to make the decision to either move you forward in the process or to put an offer sheet on the table and purchase your skill set and your services for the role, right? That's what I mean by closing. Now, why bother closing people? Well, let me put it this way. like keep in mind that the person you're sitting across from, the interviewer or the hiring manager or whoever it is you're meeting with, their decision to hire you or move you forward in the process, it has an impact on the organization. It has an impact on their reputation within the organization as well. Let's say they're meeting with someone and let's say it's like an initial pre-screening interview, right? They meet with someone, they interview. The person is has the skill set and all of that, but they're not 100% convinced about moving them forward in the process and introducing them to the hiring manager. Now, why would they have such a fear or a worry? Like, it's just a pre-screening. Why don't they just move them along the process? Well, look at it this way. If the person ends up being a waste of time for the hiring manager, the hiring manager might get back to them and be like, hey, look, I gave you a simple task to find me blah 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 XYZ ABC. This person is nowhere near what I was looking for. They're nowhere near what this organization is looking for in a person. They're not a cultural fit, or whatever the reason is. And they might not say it in the same way, but they might imply it in that way, right? And then the person who did the pre-screen is going to end up looking, not feeling too good about themselves, and they're going to end up not looking too good in the eyes of their colleagues as well. So the purpose of the close is to make that person confident in moving you forward in the process. And the same thing with hiring. Hiring is even more. There's even more attached to it because there's the company's investing money in someone, and if that someone ends up coming to the organization screwing up or causing some kind of havoc, or it doesn't work out, or maybe they lose interest, they go elsewhere, or whatever it is. Hey, that's a cost. That's a cost to the organization now. Now it's like really monetary. So now that person is even more under. I don't know. Maybe they're being judged now. Maybe they're being scrutinized. Maybe it might even end up with them losing their job. Who knows? If the cost is big enough, you never know, right? So that's why people need to be closed, because people need to feel confident in making a decision, so they can move on, and so they can feel confident in making that decision and move on with their lives. So that's why you have to learn how to close and help people make that decision to move you forward in the process. Now, if you're working with a staffing agency such as myself, so what we do with our client on behalf of candidates, we handle a lot of this closing stuff on behalf of our candidates, so that the candidate doesn't have to do all that, most of the closing stuff, right? Now, if you're applying for a role directly, however, and that's who I primarily wrote this article for, then you might need to be able to do this on your own. You might need to do it directly, because you don't have a recruiter or a staffing agency representing you that can advocate for the closing part, or do the closing part on your behalf. So that's why this is important, and that's why it's important to be able to close people. And hopefully that makes sense. If you still don't understand, put a comment below, and I'll definitely do my best to expand on that for you. But hopefully you understand. So the whole purpose of closing is because people, for the most part, do not feel 100% confident or comfortable in making a decision. So what do? They add time to the equation, or some kind of excuses or hidden objections, which I've talked about, hidden objections or unspoken objections, because ultimately they don't feel confident in moving forward in the process. So they come up with all these weird and strange or minuscule reasons as to why they don't want to move forward. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's the reason why you need to be able to help them make that decision to move you forward in the process, or hire you. And again, and so in terms of so another common concern I get is from people in other parts of the world who say, Dean, these are great tips and advice, but you know what? It's not going to work in my part of the world where I'm from, because these questions would be considered rude, Dean. They would be considered rude, and if I asked them, the hiring manager would get so upset, and they just find me so arrogant and rude and impolite. So look, I totally understand that. I totally get that. Obviously, there are some cultural differences between here in Canada, the States, and other parts of the world. So you have to customize the delivery of these questions to suit whatever your local culture is. But at the end of the day, you still have to ask these questions. Like, make sure you're not making these excuses so you don't have to ask these questions. Because don't kid yourself. These questions do take courage to ask, and I'm not minimizing the impact of being able to ask these questions, because I know it does take some courage, right? So what you need to do is uh, deliver it or customize it or phrase it in the way that you would do it in your local culture, but ask the question. Like I wouldn't know all the various nuances of the various cultures out there. Like I'm in Canada, and I can speak for, I'm pretty sure, my friends in the States as well, because our cultures are pretty much the same or similar, right? So I'm sure these questions, whatever your culture is, whatever part of the world you are in, you might have to integrate it with your local culture. Maybe you don't shake hands, maybe you don't call people by their first name, maybe you have to refer to everyone as sir or madam or whatever it is. So customize it for whatever your local situation is, but still ask the questions, but phrase it in a way, or deliver it in a way where you're not coming across as arrogant or rude or impolite according to your local customs. So I think that yeah, that's pretty much about it that I wanted to cover. So again, if you haven't read the article, make sure you read it. I guarantee if you ask these questions, it's going to open up a great discussion at the interview. It'll help you lay the groundwork for closing them and moving yourself further in the process. And it's going to show, you know what, it's most of all, it's going to show that you're proactive. It's going to show that you have interest in the role and interest in the company and interest in discussing, the real issues at hand. So make sure you, again, read that article. I'll post a link below. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll post it in the description. If you're watching this on LinkedIn, or I'll post it in the comments. So that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that was helpful. I hope that kind of made sense, my elaboration of that article. So remember, the way you deliver it, the way you ask them is just as important as the question itself. So always keep that in mind. Other than that, that's about it. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I will do in my another video probably on Friday. But I'm trying to do more videos. Like I really want to get more, put more of these out. And if there's any particular topics you want me to cover, don't hesitate in letting me know. Comment below or send me a message, or let me know what issues you are facing in the job search that you need help with. If you want to know my perspective on things, I'll do my best to address them and help all of you guys out in your job search. Other than that, hot roles I'm working on definitely have a couple of Java developer roles and also .NET developer roles. I believe the .NET ones are all full-time permanent. For the Java, I do have both contract and full-time. Most of the positions are based out of downtown Toronto. I think for the .NET ones, there's some based out in Mississauga or Oakville or something of that sort. But in any case, if you're a software developer, if you're a .NET developer, if you're a Java developer, if we're not connected, if we haven't spoken, make sure you reach out to me, and let's connect. I'll definitely do my best to help you in your job search. And again, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Dean Kulawira. I'm an IT recruiter at SRA Staffing. We're based out of Yonge and Sheppard. If you're ever in the area, give me a heads up. We'd love to meet with you in person, talk about your background, your skill set, your career, or just to meet up and get to know if there's any way I can help you. If not immediately, at some point in the future. So let's connect. Let's keep in touch. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great evening.